Facts and Fancies, by and with Armando Iannucci.
On writing a book. Writing a book is an undertaking far more horrific than I'd ever imagined. Not only must the writer come up with several tens of thousands of words, not all of them the same, but he or she must arrange them in an order that makes some sort of sense to the first-time reader. It's no use starting your book, Linford Christie stepped into the horse-box, bemused by the wall of mushrooms which stood grinning at the back, if you have no intention of taking these ideas any further. To start a book with this sentence, but then take your eye off the ball for a moment and end up writing a 20,000-word guide to Polish war memorials deserves the highest criticism. It's a fault that took me many months of practice to avoid. Others have been less meticulous. I'm surely not the only one to have noticed that Will Hutton's otherwise admirably written economics bestseller, The State We're In, opens with the sentence, "This book has been carefully graded so that you can begin with one or two elementary dishes, yet soon be able to set out a full Thai meal with all its unique flavours." Nor is there any earthly explanation other than sheer authorial incompetence for a few stray lines in Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, which at the end of a brilliant explanation of the symbiotic relationship between quantum theory and relativity, seductively hinting at a unified theory of gravity, suddenly continue, Bevan let out a gasp of astonishment and playful pleasure at the professor's remarks. "Oh, boy," she yelped like a cat. "Tell it to me one more time, 'cause I'm on fire, particle man." She remembered now their curiously interrupted love-making from the previous night, and resolved to hammer the door shut this time. The remaining 90 pages revert to a discussion of particle-wave duality within light emissions. Consistency of subject is therefore a prerequisite for even the most vaguely competent stab at a book. But there are more basic concerns that have to be addressed first. For example, what size of book do you intend to write? To resolve the issue, I spent months locked in negotiations with my editor and various 3D cardboard models of my proposed work. One model was for a book 5 millimetres thick and 4 metres high. I'm told it was life-size. We dismissed the notion as impractical, and in the end we came up with a prototype new size invented from scratch with some measuring tape and crepe paper. I'd always been a fan of the thickness of Nicholas Nickleby and Wild Swans, and wanted to aim for something similar. I was also impressed by the sensible height of the Inspector Morse series. After some arguments and tears, we agreed that the final book mould should deposit into people's hands something thicker than J.G. Ballard, but without ballooning into Robert Ludlum. As for subject matter, I was initially interested in writing an encyclopedia of folklore, and indeed the first draft of this book went pretty much along those lines. However, one or two changes have occurred along the way. My editor made improvements in the structure, first by eliminating the encyclopedic element, and then by producing a chart which showed how much the idea of a book about folklore is hated by all of the reading public. I'm extremely grateful for her gentle emendations. Since falling in with her and her book-positing cronies, I've become party to a shameful trade practice, which I now feel it my duty to snitch on here, namely that the endings to most volumes of non-fiction currently produced in this country are being fixed by overseas betting syndicates. If you think it beyond the imagination of good writers to sink into the mire, then just look at the following paragraph which ends John Pilger's most recent manuscript, recounting his trip to East Timor. "The weapons industry still flourishes in this land of the impoverished, and the rain that nurtures it is a rain of hard cash poured out of Western aid budgets. It's as grim a certainty that the local arms factory will be in constant production this winter as that Dunfermline will have to pull out all the stops if they want to avoid bitter defeat against Hamilton on Saturday." Insightful analogy? Maybe, but British non-fiction writers are big business in certain parts of the world, and in flea markets all over Thailand and Singapore, illegal bets are being placed on the conclusion of their works. How else can you explain these lines I found near the end of Bernard Levin's latest scroll? Solzhenitsyn then turned and left me alone in the room, and as I watched his frail yet curiously powerful form withdraw, I could only tremble at his parting words, that Russia is in a kind of waking death, and that Berwick manager Tom Hendry may face an upset when his youthful side meet Dumbarton at the weekend. A brief glance at the Sunday sports pages at the time of publication will tell you that Alexander Solzhenitsyn was indeed no footballing novice. But why the intrusion of Scottish football speculation in an otherwise dull tone?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?